Okay.
Right, good evening all. I hope we're all well. Could everyone please mute their microphones so it just doesn't disturb us whilst we get into this evening's session. I'm just waiting for, how are you, Kay? I see you, as you can see. How are you doing? I'm waiting for my other two guests, but I'm not going to wait for them to log on. I'm just going to start because it tends to really get into it as it has done over the last few weeks. So yeah, that's good. As everyone's coming in, they're being muted. And I have to look at something. Bemi's phone. How are you all? I hope everyone's well. I'm exhausted, just so you know, but such is life. We continue, we can rest when we die. So tonight we're going to look at the impact of teachers within the school setting. And, you know, is there a difference when you have a Black teacher? I know some people say not really, there's not really much of a difference. Sometimes the Black teacher's worse than the others. Sometimes they're better when they look out for your child. You know, I'll be interested to also, we'll give a longer time today for people who are just attending to hear your feedback, because I know what it was like being a child in school, and I know what it's like when I see a lot of, when I have to go into hearings and I see a lot of parents and their children and teachers blatantly just sitting them dead in their face and lying. So I see a lot of what goes on, and sometimes those are the ones that are skinfolk, not necessarily kinfolk. Well, I've seen where a black head teacher in South London, I'm not going to name the school, literally falsified documents that he claimed he had sent to the mum, and the mum refused to sign. And little did he remember that we already had the school file from about 2 weeks prior, and all of a sudden, so for example, the school file was like this. I don't know if you can see it with my camera. And then by the time he came to the meeting, the school file was like that, with all these new bits of information that were never there before. And it's like, well, how? So I've seen some of the worst cases, and sometimes female teachers, how they respond. And the unfortunate thing is sometimes the pressure that a lot of our teachers are put under, the racism that they have to face on a daily basis. Sometimes that does come out looking like they're picking on your child, or, but sometimes we forget that they are also under pressure, but that still doesn't give them the right to take it out on your child or anyone's child. We hope to have Brother Hakeem Mohammed here this evening, and Marlene, who's also a teacher, so hopefully they'll come online, and we'll also hear from them. Tony, hello, good evening. I know that you're a teacher, so I know you're probably going to have lots to say as well, which is fine. I was just explaining that tonight we're going to I know there's a lot of teachers online here this evening, so we definitely want to hear from you and your experiences. Basically, the idea is, like we did last week with regards to mental health and actually holding those professionals to account, there should be no reason why we can't do the same thing with regards to the teaching profession. Because at the end of the day, our children are left in the care of teachers for up to 30, maybe 40 hours a week, depending on the type of school that your child goes to. And if they are not treated well, then that has a major impact on what we were talking about just last week with regards to the psychological well-being, the mental health of these children. So we need to make sure that as Black professionals, you guys are teaching, not me, as Black professionals, how as a wider community, we can make sure that your voices are being heard, that there is some accountability, because it seems like answer to anyone when that is furthest from the truth. They still have to abide by government regulations. They still have to follow all the codes of conduct that have been set out by the government. And time after time after time, when I go online now, I don't have to go into the schools. When I'm online with a lot of these schools, I'm astounded, absolutely astounded at what they're getting away with regards to our children. And our children are suffering mentally, emotionally, in just so many ways. So we should be able to unpick that. We should be able to be, as a people, like every other community does, hold them to task. Because writing another report, we've got reports coming out of our asses. Having another this and having we've got reports. I know a report was just done a couple of weeks ago, and I was like, but why? What for? We already know what the issue is. Where's the solutions? Where's the money at to basically invest in Black teachers? So let me introduce Kay Johnson, who many of you may have seen on the scene, who is also a teacher. So I'll let her introduce herself, what she's done and what she's doing now. Kay, are you there? Tell me that you've gone to the loo, as I just saw your face on the screen a minute ago. Oh, there you are. Hello. Let me mute myself.
Yeah. Hi, good evening, everyone. I'm Kay Johnston. I am supposedly happily retired, but that said, I work with the home education community. I've been teaching now 42 years, and I actually had at one stage my own small school, Enterprise Diamond School. And I worked with the home ed community, more or less helping to drive up standards, because what I've found with a lot of parents who are home educating, when they're reasonably confident at its primary level, but when it gets to secondary school, they've got to get out of the mindset that they don't have to match what is happening in school. So that's where I come in. I work with these children 3 days a week, and I teach a variety of subjects. And to be quite frank, since I've worked with them, I think they've made me a better version of myself. So I teach just about everything, depending on, what the need is. I do French, Spanish, English, math, science, Black history, geography. What else do I do? I'm not an artist, but I give them space to be creative. We do STEM, we do financial literacy. And yeah, so we just sort of like fill the week. We, to fill those 3 days, but we can get a week's curriculum in 3 days. And
I was going to ask you, Kay, when you were a teacher, when you were teaching in a mainstream school, can you hear me?
Yeah. Yes, I can.
When you were teaching in a mainstream school as a Black teacher yourself, did you find the children were different with you than they were with maybe maybe an Asian or a white teacher? Were they different, or is it down to how you treat?
It's a bit of both, because you find that once there's a Black teacher, the Black children tend to gravitate towards that teacher. And I certainly had my, moments of gravitation with these children, and the parents seemed to be more reassured. I had, particularly in the later years, senior positions in school. So I was in charge of admissions, and the year 6 to 7 transition, I was also head of Key Stage, and I've been program manager at colleges, head of inclusion. So I met a lot of parents, and when they came in and saw a Black face, they felt a lot more reassured. But that said, it meant that I had to deliver exactly what I said I would do, because, they are, having a Black face is not synonymous with being excellent and being efficient. So I had to make sure that I did that. And that's how I built up my reputation over the years. If I said that I was going to do something, that's exactly what they got, and even overboard. What I've done over many, many years is wraparound care. And that's where it matters, so that even though young people that I taught 15 years ago are still seeking me out and will discuss things that happened at school, that they, or just after they left school and they've been carrying this burden for a while, and needed to speak to me, and I'm finding that happening now with people that I taught 15 years ago. 12 years ago, so again, having a Black face is somebody that they can identify with, somebody that they know that, because it wasn't always, sort of like, I'm the teacher, so you do exactly as I say. And I was quite strict at school, and I still think that I am to some degree, but they see the human side as well. And it's giving that child or children a chance to say what's on their mind. And I found that I find it very easy to get children to open up. And even with the homemade children I work with now, every once a month we have what we call Frank Time. And with Frank Time, we sit around and we discuss things. They bring out their emotions out in the open, and they have a chance to air their feelings and things that they would keep bottled up. And one that sticks in my mind is 2 years ago, I had a year 10 girl with me. And she had a younger brother who was not there on that particular day because he wasn't feeling too well. And she said, I'm glad my brother's not here because I need to discuss love. She said, I don't know how to show love. And when I do, it comes across as aggression, and then I get into trouble, and then it escalates from there. And, once she put that out in the open, then everybody else, sort of talked with how they dealt with relationship with siblings and with families, etc. And it was an absolutely powerful session. So at least once a month, or at least once every 5 weeks, we have Frank Time. And we just sit around and we talk about issues that are going on in their lives, issues that are going on in the community, in their families, things that worry them. And I actually had a box that is called Things That Bother Me. And but in anything anonymous in there, and we pick it out and we just air it. They don't have to put their names on it. And we sit down and we just talk. Okay, I'll just read out, okay, this problem here, how do we deal with this? And you're getting different points of view. And because they're mixed ages, we get the point of view from a 9-year-old and the point of view from a 14-year-old, etc. And you merge all that together, you get some kind of medium, as to how to deal with it. But apart from that, I also do what I call a journey session with some children who need that little bit of emotional support. So I do an emotional journey, which is more or less based on forgive and move on. And that's a strict one-to-one session, so that they can move on to the next phase in their lives, feeling a little more comfortable and shed some of the emotional baggage that some of them are taking around. Because this is where PRUs fail. Because the minute a child steps into a PRU, everybody knows why you've been kicked out of school for whatever reason, whether it's fair or unfair, we'll never know. But until they've got the therapeutic care in place, no kind of curriculum, academic or vocational, should be put in place, because the children are not in the right headspace. You've got to deal with the self-esteem issues and everything else that goes with it. And that's where, you know, I've been into PRUs and see time and time again, this is where they're getting wrong. You know, until you've got to work with that child and getting them emotionally stable and they head in a happy space. And until then you can start introducing any kind of curriculum. Because once you've got happy children will achieve and they will work, and they know that you want the same thing for them that they want for themselves, or even better, because you've got a different point of view. And, you know, they're going to go places. But until that is done, you're just wasting your time. And that is why PRUs fail. But I mean, the PRUs, we've got children in school failing for the same reason too, because issues come up in school and schools are now dealing with it, and it's all passing them on to external agencies, which is never ever going to work, because the external agencies come in, they don't have a background, they just look at a piece of paperwork and they act on that, and things of course go haywire, as you yourself would have known from the cases that you pick up. So, you know, for me, I'm tired of seeing it, and the change that needs to be done. The whole system out there is not just in need of an overhaul, it needs a complete transformation. And I despair of those in charge who are supposed to be doing it, who have no clue what to do.
No. Okay, hold on a minute, Kay. Give me a second. You just sit there on that four.
Okay.
I want to introduce Sister Green, Marlene Green. Who is a teacher in a school right now.
Okay.
Tony, I'm going to come to you as well, because every week you have a lot to say, so it will be great to hear from you also. So good evening, Marlene. Please introduce yourself to everyone and, you know, what you do.
Good evening. My name is Marlene Green. I am a teacher. I'm not actually in the schools at the moment. I'm in further ed. But I am working with 16 to 19-year-olds, and I'm doing functional skills and English, but ideally I'd like to veer off and do Black history. I have been in the teaching field for about 35 years. Prior to that, I was a youth worker, head of centre, and that's what actually inspired me to go into teaching, because a lot of the young people that I was working with then, they were discriminated against, and as a result, they played a lot of truant. So my centre was adjacent to a school, and there, what I would do, I would target the young people that I knew was playing truant, and they would come into the centre, and I would help them with their work. And the teachers, as well as the headmistress, saw a marked improvement in the work that they were actually producing, and therefore, whenever a teacher was absent, I would then be called in to take the class, and that's how I got into teaching. But since then, what I have noticed, there is an imbalance in the way teachers interact with Black people in particular, particularly Black young boys. Yes, we are different in the sense that our culture is different, but that does not mean that we are different in the way that we all learn differently. I'm aware of that, but they put this feeling onto our young boys that they are not capable of achieving, when in fact, from my experience, our young men are of a higher echelon than some of their contemporaries. And certain things that I saw in the schools kind of made me despondent. And as a result, I decided to go into further education for my own sanity. But at the same time, I do private tutorials and what have you. And that's where I'm at the moment.
Wow. Sorry, I don't mean to cut you, but you had to go into higher education to save your own sanity.
Yes,
that's
because
very powerful. Because could you imagine, as the teacher, that's what you're saying? Imagine what those children are going through.
Yes. Yes, because of the type of person I am. I'm a person, what you see is what you get, and I'm very honest. I say it as it is. It's not what you say, it's how you say it. And I'm very aware of how I say it. And a lot of my colleagues, they were very aware of me and the fact that I had this relationship. I do have very good relationship with clear boundaries with all students, regardless of their background. And the teachers, in schools, they were very aware of that. And there was a time when I felt that I was being targeted, not because I did anything wrong, but because of the way I interacted with the young people, because the young people would compare me to my colleagues, and my colleagues wouldn't like that. I don't have to shout and scream at my students to get them to conform in the classroom. I don't have to do that. When my students are being disruptive, I will sit back and I will be very quiet and give my students the time to adjust and to think about what they're doing. And I actually get them to police their own selves. And that's what I do. And that's what I kept telling my colleagues, but they've tried it, but for some reason it didn't work with them. And eventually I had to, as I said, I had to leave because I had to actually let one of my deputies know that I wouldn't want to be white. It's an honor to be Black. It's a privilege. And at that point, I knew I had to leave that industry for a while. And that's where I'm at.
Good gosh. You guys are making me feel depressed. So Brother Hakeem is unfortunately not available. He works in a pupil referral unit, and that's the reason why I called him on, but he's tied up. Hold on, let me turn on my camera. He's actually tied up with a meeting between some of the students and them not being sent to Peru. So obviously the children always take precedence, so I don't mind that. So that's fine. So we will continue nonetheless. Oh, it's all a woman power team. So it looks like Tony, I will come to you because I know you're a teacher and I've been so busy this week. It's quite rude because it's been mad busy. Like yesterday, I was literally emotional on Brother Andrew's show because I was so wound up. I was so mad from having to basically not even cuss out, but put two different meetings, two different head teachers, both failing Black students, two different schools, failing Black students, and one felt it was okay to put this one of the boys who's clearly got SEMH and ADHD in detention. He's been in detention 79 times since November, December. And the other school was, we don't know what to do now, so we're just going to end up kicking him out. We're going to either permanently exclude or we'll find a smaller school for him because he didn't even know how to fill out an educational healthcare plan form or to even make a referral to the education department. So I was literally like, are you kidding me? I couldn't believe it. I was just like, every time he spoke, I just cut him off and I goes, do you realize what you're doing is unlawful? I was so mad. And that's the first time I've ever lost it in a professional meeting because I was like, hold on a minute, these children are going out of their minds. One boy's got suicidal thoughts. He's had a traumatic background and they're talking about, if he doesn't do what he needs to do, then he'll have to no, he won't go to detention. He will not go to detention, not while I'm involved in this case. He will never get to sit another, I was so mad. So when I got onto the thing, I was like, well, because, and then after that, I was fine after about 10 seconds. Tony, let us know who you are and what you do. I see you on here every week. Thank you very much for your support.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Sister Cheryl, it's always a pleasure to be on your platform. What you do is wonderful. My name, ladies and gentlemen, is Tony Cox. I am a teacher, educator, and a mentor with the 100 Black Men of London. I've come late into the profession. I've only been teaching about 4 or 5 years now. I work through agency, so I've been able to place myself at my own behest wherever I want to. But I try to work in the main with teenagers. I find they're a group that are in most need of strong Black role models like myself. But I've worked in primary, I've worked in I've worked in PRUs. I've worked in about 4 or 5 PRUs in different parts of London. I've worked with Kyan Prince Foundation, Mark Prince, my brother. So, you know, I do a lot of work. I'm a boxing coach, and I'm very heavily invested now at my age in just doing everything I can to help our children, because I can see the plight that they're in. And more so now that I'm actually in school and seeing exactly what our children have to deal with. Really, I mean, you know, everything that I've heard so far, I can honestly say I've seen it, I know it, I feel it. I feel racism every day as a teacher in schools that I work in. You know, there are teachers who just, you know, microaggressions every day, you know, especially now looking at, you know, the situation in Ukraine. You know, every day I walk into the school, somebody's talking about Ukraine and they're talking about Russia. And, you know, it's just all that Western media narrative all the time. You know, no one's mentioning anything about the treatment of Black people in the Ukraine. No one's talking about the neo-Nazis that exist in Ukraine. No one's talking about the mixed race children who, you know, are being totally, you know, ignored in Ukraine, the orphanages that are refusing to take mixed race kids. You know, the country is horrible. It's a horrible place. And I've had experience working in Eastern Europe, and you know, it's a horrible place at some times. So I understand what goes on in those places. But getting back to the main point, you know, as I said, I deal with racism. I understand how difficult it is for Black teachers. I'm part of the Black Teacher Network, Young Black Teacher Network. I listen in on their talks, I contribute, and I know that we as Black educators are under so much pressure. You know, you turn around twice and, you know, someone's shouting, oh, he's aggressive, he's aggressive. You know, you put a child in line and you get a complaint and yeah, oh, Mr. Cox is aggressive with the children, da 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 da. You know, but believe it or not, the work I do with the children who are my color is amazing. Those children love me. You know, they can't wait to come and see me. You know, inside the school, outside the school, they love me. You know, I have a way with them. I understand them, and the schools just don't understand this. You know, they just don't understand this. You know, it's terrible. So, in terms of the students, you know, again, you know, many schools don't have sufficient resources to deal with our children. You know, the Senko departments are almost exclusively white. So, you know, when they start dealing with children who are acting up, straight away you've got a young adult, because most of them are quite young, and they're trying to all, you know, work out how we're going to deal with a child who's not quite going along with everything else that the children in his class are dealing with, or her class are dealing with. And quite often this is where I get called in. You know, we've got issues with this student. Mr. Cox, could you help us by working with this child? Yeah, sure. And talking to many of my colleagues in the field, it seems that, you know, we are the fix-it for Black children when they fall out of line. You know, they're quick to call in a Black man or a Black woman to try and help with a situation because we don't know what we're doing, basically. You know, and we're culturally inept.
Yeah.
They're inept. They just don't know. You know, you can't talk to them about African culture. You can't talk to them about Caribbean culture, because those are definitely two different cultures. And, you know, then the people in the school don't understand it. You know, so it's difficult, and I have empathy with some of the teachers, because having come out of COVID, they've been asked to deal with a hell of a lot, and they're just so heavily under-resourced. They're literally trying to deliver lessons to a class of 30 children and being told you've got between now and then to fix them. You know, You're talking about dealing with children who have come out of 2 years of isolation in sometimes very dysfunctional family households, where in fact school is the safe place, yeah, and their mental capabilities are not quite where it needs to be. But the teachers are not given the resources to be able to deal with those children separately or in the specific time scales that would be appropriate to those children, because all they're being told is catch those children up. They need to be ready for their SATs come May. You know, so it's a really bad situation in education right now. You know, I think the more we can educate the parents into using resources where, you know, the likes of additional support systems, going into supplementary schools, using extra education where necessary to bring their kids up in line, the better. Where they can go through things like rites of passage organizations, like 100 Black Men, like Manhood Academy, like Urban Synergy, etc. They're gonna help. They're gonna help. It's not always the answer, but it's gonna help, because our kids need assistance. They need to know how to navigate school. And that's something we try to do within the 100. For instance, we teach our kids, we try to teach them how to navigate school. We teach them, we talk to them from age 9 and 10 about transitioning from some primary school into secondary school. Massive jump. You know, loads of cultural problems are going to exist in that year 7 group, because they're suddenly thrown into the lion's den. They're no longer the big fish in the small pond. They're now the small fish in the big pond. I'm gonna leave it there. So come back to me when you're ready.
No problem. No, thank you. That's a good introduction. So I'm going to ask this. Doesn't matter who answers between you. Maybe you go in order, then Kay, then Marlene, then you, Tony, to answer one of the questions. As a Black teacher in the schools, and I heard you to mention about resources, Tony, and also children coming from years 6 to 7. How do you feel, or how do you see as a Black teacher your role with regards to those children that are coming from primary school? Part 1. Part 2, do you guys can you identify when you have a child that has additional needs, and lockdown being quite paramount to that? One of the things I've noticed is that we're having a lot of children with meltdowns, like literally smashing up the school live on camera, but they're excited that my internet connection is unstable. Maybe more Marlene and Tony, because both of you currently work in schools. And for UK, I would actually put that to how parents have taken their children out because of the mental trauma that they're going through, and what you see is the difference in the transition. Anyone can go, knock yourself out. Maybe ladies before gentlemen. I'm not a feminist.
Well, what
what
I have done, sorry, Kay, did you start? Go ahead. No, go ahead.
Me on me. Okay, well, what I found when I was in school, you know, particularly with those children, the young one, well, I was the role of mother as well as teacher. And that is, you know, is how it worked, because they saw me as a maternal figure who was there, who was caring, etc. And I also had the luxury, you know, you don't realize it's a luxury at the time, that I was also in charge of SEN. And when I took over SEN, and I actually merged SEN, EAL. At the time we had the gifted and talented. We just merged all of them, because I think what people don't realize is that those children who are gifted and talented also have a special need. And if it's not catered for, you will lose those children, because they're the ones who will incite disorder because they're bored. So being in charge of that gave me a complete overview. And at one stage I was managing key stage 3 and 4, which means that all the children in the school. They came in from year 6, 7. I put a program in place so that with a cluster of heads and deputies in the borough, so that in year 6 they started the work and came into year 7 to carry on their own work. So it was that familiarity until they settled in. And then getting their, behaviors, because when they come into secondary school, they come in like 45 different schools, and I used to give myself 6 weeks to get them into what I expect of them. But then it's all about modeling the kind of behavior. And also what I found that really did drive up attainment was the termly celebration of achievement. And what the first time I implemented that in a school, I found that it was some children who were, I gave awards for attainment and also for effort. And what you found is that some children got a lot of certificates for effort, but not attainment. But then by the end of the school year, you saw some of them coming off effort and into the attainment. And it was a huge drive, to driving up of attainment with those children. And so I know through that, I was quite popular because the prizes that they got at the end of it were worth having. And the price could be anything from a bicycle to speakers, something for their computers, something that was worthwhile, not, something that they would just put down and never look at again, so they were more worthy of the children's attention, and it made them want to achieve in order to get it. I remember one little boy said to me, I didn't get any certificates this year. I didn't get any prize. Mm-hmm. But the next time, because it was totally anonymous, I would just go to teachers and say, just give me the names. And he said, but next term, when you do it, I will.
Oh.
And he did. He absolutely did. I remember one parent came to me and said, my son didn't get anything, and he was almost accusatory. And I said, well, I just get the names from teachers and process the certificates. And that boy worked. To the last assembly, the celebration of achievement assembly I actually had to tell his father, I have got a gift for John. He said, can you please make sure that you're here? His father videoed it. You couldn't believe that the effort that this child put in, because he wanted to be one of those whose name will be called up and he will get something, that was shows his effort. So, that also, was, it helped to drive up standards, but it helped the children to improve without them realizing how easy it was to improve by just focusing, because they knew they wanted to get something. They wanted that public recognition at the end of it. Now, on the other hand, I'm stepped out of the system, and I've got a lot of parents who contact me because they either want to take their children out or they have taken their children out. And the difference that I've seen, because my setting is quite small, and so they get more of the one-to-one attention, and they absolutely thrive on it. There are times when, because I'm working with mixed stages, I could be teaching 4 different subjects at 4 different levels to 4 different children, and it doesn't matter. There's no discipline problems, there's no rudeness, there's no behavior issues, and I don't care what their history is. I'm not interested in reading it, because the minute it is written, it is already in the past tense. It doesn't matter anymore, and I don't look at what other people think of their image or vision of a child to make that cloud how I treat that particular child. Like when they come to me, we wipe the slate clean. I don't want to know your past. I don't want to know the difficulty. This is what I'm presented with. This is how we're going to go. And it absolutely works, at least for me. So we just get on with it. But it's scary, the amount of parents who want to take their children out, and they have, they're afraid of their own ability to educate their children, because they believe in, and even so, the home ed links for the local authorities come in with a very stereotypical view as to what education should look like. So that terrorizes a lot of the parents, because they expect to see, child sitting at a table and doing exactly what they should be doing in school and meeting the same attainment at the same time. The whole idea of home educating your children is that they work at their own pace. They follow their passions. And if you look at a lot of the top, people who are top of the game, whether it's in athletics or whatever, they were all homeschooled.
Mm.
Only then they had enough time to be able to dedicate to the passions and the careers that they have now. Because if you're in school, you imagine that you finish at 3:30 and then you've got enrichment and or you've got detention, you've got add-ons, goodness knows what else. And you're getting home at 5:30 and you want to be a top swimmer. When are you going to find the time to do it? You know, the Williams sisters, you know, that was off the top of my head, they were homeschooled. And so they had enough time to dedicate to tennis as well as doing whatever else academic things that they did. And so that's what I encourage parents to do. So you are bringing up the next pilot, the next whatever. You let your child the chance to, you know, follow their passion and do what makes them happy. It isn't just about English, math, science, or feeling that you have to do what everybody else is doing. That's not what it's all about. So as soon as they've taken their children out, they said, you are not in competition. And anybody who comes to you from the local authority, you tell them those exact words. Your child is not in competition with those in school. That is why you've taken them out. Because, you know, I look back on my years in school, 37 years, and I'm absolutely horrified because I'm now seeing education without walls, and there's no turning back. And I'm actually horrified that I spent so long in the system. And while it seemed effortless now, I look back and think, how on earth could, you know, did we do things like this? Because I'm seeing things now with a different pair of eyes, and there's never any way that we are going to ever go back. You know, I've done the supplementary school thing. My mom and I ran a supplementary school in the North Peckham estate. For many years, I did it for 8 years until my children came along, and then I sort of bowed out. But then we were never short, and we also, through the teaching and educational project, we used to run leadership conferences once a month at the Commonwealth Institute, taking children from Sussex schools. And it was amazing. You'd go in and said, okay, give me 25 of your disruptive, what you consider disruptive students. Of course, they were all the Black children. There were never any white disruptive students. And so we would take 50 children every month up to the Commonwealth Institute and do leadership conferences with them. They were exposed to the role models. They had plenary sessions. And then we did follow up in schools and turn those children around. Every single month we were doing that. I did it for 8 years. And we exposed to different role models from various professions so that they could see people like themselves who look like themselves or look like their parents, who were achieving great things. So yes, it can absolutely be done to achieve and to get children to go great heights with their lives if they have the right role model and they can see that, yes, this person can do it, I can do it too. But there's a lot of encouragement that it takes for some children. Some children just look and say, well, if you can do it, so can I. Because, you know, they also get a chance to understand that not every teacher just walks into a profession. Every teacher has a journey that got them where they are. So they will have, that's part of your journey. And yes, there'll be a few bumps, but you will get where you're going. It also takes a lot of mentoring, you know, to get children in the right way. So I put a mentoring scheme in place, where certainly at Key Stage 4, the children are matched to a mentor who matches whose career matches their aspirations, and that mentor begins to co-parent. And that's how for parents, they've got extra support because they can call on a mentor to, you know, do the pep talk, etc. And that mentor is very much involved in that child's educational journey. Yep, that's my two bits. Okay.
That's great, Kay. No, that's good. Marlene, what did you want?
As Kate started off saying that she was friend mother to the young people that she taught. Likewise, I am friend and mother, but there must be the clear boundaries. I'm also a teacher. I'm here to help you to set your goals and to help you to look forward to your future. So that's very imperative. And when I come across a young person that I realize do need this additional learning support, what I do, I have a frank talk with them and help them to see what is expected of them and what they are not attaining to. And in order for us to help them, or for me to help them to achieve what the institution expects them to do, just to tick the boxes, and for them not to think if they don't achieve those goals, they are inadequate. I don't want them to think that. So therefore, we are going to work toward those goals in order for them to be able to raise their self-esteem by achieving what is expected from them. And this is going to be achieved not on my terms, but on their terms. It's going to be achieved on their pace, and I will give them the resources that I know will help them to achieve it. I tailor my resources toward the work that the young people are doing in order for them to achieve that. And they work at their own pace. We set their targets. And once that's completed, I see that their awareness are heightened. And as a result of that, they feel very, one of the first things I tell my students when I meet them is the importance of having confidence. If you don't have confidence, you're not going to achieve anything. But it's not about confidence as in confidence, it's knowing who you are. You have to know who you are. You have to accept who you are. No two people are the same. We are all different, and we are here to learn from each other. I'll teach you and you teach me. I make mistake, you're going to make a mistake. So don't think that because you've made a mistake, you're inadequate. On the contrary, by making a mistake, you're teaching me that I'm also fallible. So therefore, the goals that we set, when we set these goals, we're not going to meet them immediately. We're going to meet them at a certain time. But what path are we going to take to meet these goals? Is it going to be a broad path, or is it going to be a narrow path? And that's your decision. So therefore, what I do by setting the goals that the young people, I know is going to help the young people to attain what is good for them in the long term, they will then work closely with me. I will then give them the resources, and I will also work very closely with the safeguarding department, or the special needs is the SEN department, in order for them to achieve what they have to achieve. And with regards to being homeschooled, I wish I had taken that route. I did not do that, but I was not in the right frame of mind at that time. And I think it's a really good resource, particularly now with all what's going on and everything that's going on, the awareness that's been brought forward with regards to discrimination against the Black child. And the fact that our people are actually doing that, taking that stand and saying, yes, I'm going to homeschool my child. And that is showing that we're not afraid of the authorities. Whereas I remember when I first came to England, my parents were afraid of the authorities, and that really hindered a lot of that generation, because back then at home, the teachers were allowed to discipline us, and our parents were giving these Caucasians the right to discipline us, not realizing, come on, they're going to misuse that power. And we couldn't go back and tell our parents, look, this is what you've done. Later on, we were able to share that, but at that time, they were not, they were just with the teachers because they are the people of authority. But now our people, they have the strength, to say, no, I'm not afraid of you. I'm going to homeschool my child, and these are the reasons why I am going to homeschool my child. And as we see, a lot of the homeschool Black people, they are more successful than they would have been if they were educated in the institution and have to encounter all the racism that they encountered. So I would like to really get more involved with homeschooling and develop my awareness, and that's where I'm at.
Thank you, Marlene. That's a lot. And you touched on a few points that just reminded me of some of the questions I want to ask. Tony, what do you say to that question? And then everybody that wants to ask questions, please just give us until at least 8 o'clock. From 8 o'clock onwards, we'll have Q&A.
So yeah, I just think,
Go on, Tony, sorry.
Schools need more Marlenes. That's the short and tall of it. We just don't see enough Marlenes in schools. I know a number of Marlenes who work in various places, but you can only get around so far, and that's the problem. We need more Marlenes. So if you're out there and you can do something, get involved, because we need you in supplementary schools, we need you in mainstream schools, we need you in homeschool. So you've got to cover all bases. Remembering that many parents even are now so financially struggling to pay bills that the concept of not having a 9-to-5 job is impossible. You cannot have be a homeschooler and have a 9-to-5 job. It's nigh on impossible.
Yes.
It's a massive commitment. And I take my hat off to those that do. I have 2 of them in the 100 that I work with. But yeah, anyone who homeschools, my hat is, taken off. But yeah, it just is restrictive as a result of society today enforcing that, often both parents, not just one parent, but both parents need to work 9-to-5. In terms of my interaction with children and what I find myself having to be is, almost like the opposite to Marlene and Kay, where they see themselves as a mother figure. I see myself as a father role model, and especially for Black boys. Black boys very often may not have that in their lives, and where that is missing, especially at the 100 Black Men of London, where we have children coming in, we see ourselves as that extension of family, the uncle, the stepfather, whatever it may be. But we are that person that comes into a child's life and instantly can find a rapport with that child. I think that's most important for me. I'm a guy who's got a lot of hats. I've done a lot of things in my life. Played rugby, played football, boxing coach, football coach, swimmer, musician, DJ. So it's kind of good that I always find myself able to find a common ground with whatever child I'm working with. Obviously the one that is most common is football. Most of the boys that I work with, you turn around and say, "Oh, are you into football?" "Yeah, I'm into football." "Great, let's talk." And you get whatever it is you can find it in with, you use that, and that becomes your grip with that child. I use that relationship to help me build a synergy where we both know, we're both going to watch this game tonight. And I know about 20 kids tonight are going to be watching a football game tonight, and we're all going to get back to school in the morning, and we're going to be like, "Did you watch the game last night?" Blah, 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 blah. And we're bouncing off each other because I've got that group. I know that group. Whereas if I'm dealing with a girl, I'm going to be like, "Okay, what are you into? Dance? Okay, let's talk about that." My daughter's a dancer. She's a contemporary dancer at one of the top schools in England. Yeah. I'm a former b-boy. I'm a former jazz dancer. I can do something with anybody because I will find that synergy. And that's the thing. A lot of teachers aren't doing that. And I tell you what I'm seeing. Yeah. I go into school and I start talking with the kids and I start getting in depth into them. Yeah. And those teachers cannot wait to get away from the children. They don't feel the love. The children are not feeling the love because the teachers are like, "I want to deliver the lesson," and gone. And especially in secondary, because that's all you're doing. You got a bunch of children walk into your room, deliver your lesson and get the hell out. They're not about, let me engage. Let me make this lesson appropriate to these children. Very few and I can commend one school where they tried to teach Shakespeare and went, you know what? We can take the rap version of Shakespeare and bring that in the classroom. Or let's take the black film version of a Shakespeare play, because there are plenty. Yeah, don't forget, Shakespeare wrote many plays with black characters in, and we can use that in the classroom so that it's more accessible to black students, because they're going to see themselves and go, oh, hang on a second, this Shakespeare fella ain't all about black people. You know, so it's about being able to tailor education so that it works with the children in their different environments. The one hat fits all problem is another issue, you know, because again, especially at secondary school, you just think, I have to deliver this lesson. If a child drops behind or doesn't have an interest in that subject, it's almost become a war now, because it becomes a war between that teacher and that student. That student either doesn't like the lesson or is just not fast at picking up what the teacher is delivering in that lesson. Yeah. And then, you know, what does that lead to? That leads to antipathy, that leads to the teacher bad-mouthing the student. That happens in the staff room. Every other teacher hears that story, and all of a sudden, that student is a bad egg. And I know all the teachers in this room will back me up on that one. As soon as one child runs out of order, the whole school has to find out, because that teacher has to go in the staff room and tell everybody, because you couldn't deal with that student. So that's where I'm at. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to stand back from those teachers, because I'm not about that life. I want to go in, I want to show them love. Something that they may be missing at home. Something they feel they're not getting. The teachers aren't giving it, because they can't wait to get rid of you. Who else plays with the children in the playground like me? Nobody. Literally no other teacher. You know, I'm teaching them cricket right now. I'm the only teacher. All the other teachers are in the corner looking at the children, making sure they're not behaving. Whereas me, I'm taking the girls and the boys, teaching them how to bowl, talking to them about the game, telling them about the heroes of the sport. You know, nobody else is doing that work. You know, so that's the kind of thing that we need more of in schools. We need more invested black teachers who are willing to bring the love to those who need it. I'm done.
Wow. Yeah, I agree with you. But do you know the interesting thing that all of you said the same thing? The institution expects the children to conform. And it's just the word institution. Anything institutional, I don't want to be part of it. What I was going to also ask, because I was going to ask you about black mentors, but you guys are like mentors yourselves anyway. And with that also, the outlets, but Tony, you've kind of covered that. But one of the things that I'm finding, and I don't know if you've noticed it, or is it that it's being picked up, is children with special educational needs. Now, there's a 2,000% increase in particularly black boys that have ADHD, ASD, ODD, autism, and all of these things. And I've seen, I can say for the last 8 years, out of all the clients I have, all of the children that come to me, there's either a diagnosis pending, or they've just been diagnosed, or they've been kicked out despite having an educational healthcare plan. Are you guys finding that within the school setting that you may be identifying a particular child's behaviors, or sometimes it's not an SEN need, it's just how the teacher is dealing with their need? So the child ends up lashing out. How do you, and if it is that, how does that translate to those that are supposed to, the SEN team, and how do you get to translate that to parents? Because I know a lot of parents are very, there's nothing wrong with my child's fine. They don't want the label. I'll be honest, particularly African parents, because we're kind of second and third generation here. So we've kind of assimilated whether we like it or not. And I find that first generation, in particular African parents, there's a stigma around witchcraft and all of those things. But how do you guys navigate that in the school? And then I'm going to come to my other question to you guys as well. Special education needs.
Marlene, do you want to go on that one? You're on mute. You're on mute, Marlene. You're on mute.
Yeah, the stigma definitely exists.
Outlets within the school. For, you know, Kwame, Jonathan is mentoring Kwame.
Okay. Yeah, the stigma definitely exists. No mother or father wants to know that their children has a defect.
Carry on. I think she'll come back.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you loud and clear.
Yeah, no mother wants to know that their children are not perfect, as it were, because we live in a world where everything must be perfect. You switch on the media, you get all these perfect high achievers, the celebrities, they all look perfect physically and maybe verbally, they all appear perfect, but they're not really perfect because, as I've said before, that we are all fallible. When I come across a young person that needs that support, when I come across a young person that need that additional support, I don't treat them any different than I would with an able-bodied student, because at the end of the day, I want that person to fit in. I want that young person to fit in. I don't want them to see that they're different. And what I will do, I will work with them at their pace, because that's so important. After we've set their goals, I will work with them at their pace. I will tailor whatever resources that I'm working with in order for them to achieve their goals. And inclusion is one of the things my colleagues always tell me. Inclusion for me is so important. What I tend to do, I tend to couple up the young person with that SEND needs with an able-bodied person. And that helps them to accept that I am me. And it will also help that the stronger student to see, well, yes, we are not all strong people. We will come across people that are not as capable or able as us. So therefore, I'm helping not only that SEND child, I'm also helping that the stronger students that don't have that special needs to also work with the SEND students. And that's what I've been doing. Oh, that's what I've done. I've finished.
Kay, do you want to say something on it?
Mute. Okay, now from as an SEN specialist myself, it may come as a surprise that I don't like the labeling myself, because I find that for some children, they use that label as an excuse for some behavior patterns that we see. I've got one young man with me at the moment who has an EHCP that he's had since he was 5. He's now 12, and this is for ADHD. Now, I know what kind of behavior can manifest from ADHD. However, over the last year that I've had this child, we're now in the 2nd year, there's no evidence of it. And it's all about the teaching that you do, the nurturing that you do, the diet that you eat. The diet is very, very important, because that's all part of, it comes in, you talk about it in PSHE. I have a close relationship with his mom now, because we talk all the time on how her son is progressing, etc. And his confidence has gone through the roof. So I've told Mom he doesn't need an EHCP. I don't, she doesn't need to have this label and this, taking him through life that he's got an EHCP, because There's no evidence of the behaviors that I've read about I've not seen it in over a year. And because, he's a completely different child. And I think if schools invested more time in these young people who come in with labels. I remember teaching I was head of inclusion at a school not far from here a few years ago. And this child came into the room and said, "Oh, good morning, miss, I've got ADHD." I said, "Oh, what's your name?" And he said, "My name is Lee." I said, "Well, that's the only label you've got. The only label you have is the name that your parents gave you. Because you're not going to use it, "Oh, I've got ADHD, so I'm going to start climbing up the walls." That's not going to happen. So, and you find that once you strip that away, you don't need any labels in life.
Mm-hmm.
And you've got to get, the hard part is it's easy actually for the children because they don't want it either. But it's getting the parents around. So, don't use that as some kind of comfort thing that, "Oh, my son has got this, so he doesn't." Your son needs perhaps a different kind of teaching. He needs nurturing, he needs mentoring, and he just needs to be shown how. And once you've got that, you will find the children become role models for them, for their peers, for role models for the younger one, because they're seeing themselves transform. And you give children, particularly in schools, you give them leadership roles, whether it's in the student council, the student voice, things like monitors. If I used to have weekly monitors with certain, responsibilities that they had, and every week they'd get certificates and the big assembly on once a week when they changed over monitors, etc., depending on how well they carried out their duties, etc. So once you start giving children responsibility in school, you will see a different child. We've actually had, sort of elections type in school where the children had to go around and campaign for head boy and head girl and head boy and deputy head boy. And they had to do a political style campaign. They had to talk at assemblies to say, "Well, if you appoint me as head boy, this is what I would do for you," etc. And so it starts giving these children a sense of importance and a bit of the real world, because they will have that, so that by the time they leave school, they're used to speaking to audiences, they're used to pumping themselves up.
Of course.
And that is what is going to get them through the interviews and the doors opening for them, whether it's a college or interview for a job. They've got used to, recognizing their strengths and promoting it for other people. To see what sort of, person they are. Rather, they're not waiting for other people to put the labels. They will tell people about themselves. And if there is a shortcoming, say, "Well, yes, I've got a shortcoming, but this is how I use it to my advantage." Everything can be used to your advantage. Don't just say, "Well, I've got this bit of a quirk," and if it hasn't stopped you, well, then it could be something that somebody else identifies with, and you can discuss, "Well, this is how I deal with it." But, it's all about the right kind of teaching, and it's about making time for these children and just being a listening ear. For a lot of children, they just need a listening ear and somewhere where somebody with whom they feel safe with, and they will open up and talk about things that are going on outside of school that are worrying them, or things that they've noticed and they want another opinion on what you think. This is what I think. And you get them talking and feeling comfortable with talking as well. So for me, I don't like the labels. Of course, if a child is autistic, there's nothing you can do about that. But even so, it depends on the severity of the autism. Because I've managed autistic units, and I know, there's different degrees of autism and the different behaviors that can go with it. So I've met them all, from the quite violent to the quite meek. But again, it's about how you deal with these children. First of all, they've got to know that there are boundaries, and they've got to know that, yes, you will understand to a point, but your understanding has got to, match with mine. If you want me to understand you, you can't be going off the wall and expect that I will, okay, let him, smash the place up, and that's okay. They have to know that in the world out there, and while you say, "Well, this is in school," you step out in the world out there, you behave like that, you will be arrested. That's all there is to it. Because the police, if they pick you up, let's say you smash up a classroom, and then you go out and you smash up somebody's shop window, you will get arrested by the police, and they'll say, oh, well, I have autism or I've got ADHD, and that's what they're not interested in that. It is considered a crime. So it's about teaching these children boundaries so that they begin to check their own behaviors as well, because they've got to live with it. So they've got to learn to manage. They can't get in, we can't have children in a mindset of thinking that they need to be controlled. We're not a zoo. You know, so you get that zoo mentality, you get children to manage their own behavior, and you reward when, you know, even the reward doesn't have to be a prize, it could be praise. You know, so that you reward, okay, that was really good. Well done. You know, I like the way you handled that. And so they get that bit of encouragement, and then they move on to the next step. And you know, that's how it works. I mean, I've had children that have come in with the most severe difficulties, and they can achieve. You know, so again, you know, I'm just seeing somebody's, you know, or you're about parents setting boundaries, etc. What we had at school is whatever works in school, we write a note. So, you know, we met with the parents and said, okay, what methods do you use at home? Because home and school need to have a seamless, you know, way of managing the child, not the way the child is managed in school. Completely different. When you go home, something's different. So it's like what works in school, the teachers communicate, well, you know, this is what I've done, and the parents communicate as well. So you need to have that constant dialogue with parents when you're dealing with children, to get that seamless kind of behavior in child. And of course, on top of that, it is good to have a mentor who is also a co-parent. You know, we've got lots of mentors who will come in and give a motivational talk, and everybody's all fired up, and then they disappear into the thin air, and that's it. The mentors, if you've got a mentor that's attached to the child, that mentor has to go in for the long haul and be prepared to co-parent that child, so that if the parent needs any support. I have got out, you know, had a parent call me, you know, son's just off the wall, and I've got out of my pajamas at 10 o'clock at night, got in my car with a sat nav, and went and sat with that child until 1 a.m. That's what wraparound care looks like. And said, okay, now, and got him in a calm place. You know, and the parents know that they have got that backup, and they're not going to abuse it, because a lot of parents don't like to admit that they don't know what to do. So they hardly ever abuse that. So I'm not worried about, oh, they're going to call you every so often, because it doesn't need to happen. But that child knew that I was mentoring him, and if there was anything he couldn't cope with, I would be there. And it didn't matter how far he was, I would be there. And that's exactly what I did. And, you know, I only had to sit down with him once, and that was it. You know, sat with him until 1 a.m. We talked things through, and I said, okay, now it's time for you to go to bed, and I'm going home now. I'll see you tomorrow. And, you know, once they know that somebody cares.
Wow, okay.
Yeah.
That's just amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, but as I said, there's no need for labels at all.
Cheryl, your sound is very much like a Dalek, so just in case you.
Tony, what did you want to wait?
So
me off again. But go on, you go into what you wanted to say as well.
Yeah, I mean, between Kay and Marlene, you've opened up so many really good points. But I do want to just address very quickly as I can anyway, some of the points that have been raised in the chat. My brother Olu, how you doing, Olu? Hope you're well. School behavior will be dictated. School behavior will often be dictated by the ethos of the school. That definitely is the case, because you got to ask yourself, why do private schools not have some of the same issues that public schools do? Schools like, if you don't know about Brampton Manor Academy in Newham Borough, I think it's Newham Borough, yeah, a school that has a predominantly black or brown student body, has the highest rate of children achieving high grades in A levels and O levels and going to Oxbridge. Yeah. And that's because they have a black head teacher who has a strict policy on the way the school is run. Yeah. So if you don't know that school, go look it up, because you can learn a thing or two about how good schools operate.
And did you hear about
Your sound's terrible, Cheryl.
The black head teacher, the Jamaican one.
Sorry, Cheryl. I did just hear the end of that about the black head teacher, Jamaican one at Brampton Academy, is it? I'm not sure what that was. The sound, your sound's really bad at the moment. Okay, let me talk about Cassius 1971. Why are we talking about the lower end as opposed to the higher end? The lower end is the ones that we get most of. That really is the main focus, because most of the children I work with who have issues are not your higher end students who are just failing because the schools are failing them. Yes, I would like to say schools do fail good students. You know, there are exceptions to every rule. You know, there are brilliant students who do amazing things in some of the worst schools you could imagine. And at the same time, there are students who go to the best schools imaginable and fail miserably at everything and come out as a complete failure. But yeah, there's a balance to be struck. And more often than not, the children that we see or I see failing are the ones who are in the lower bracket, because there's either dysfunction at home, which creates issues, the SEN issues, which is what we're talking about. ADHD is a huge problem, because our children, and this is something Marlene and Kay didn't mention, but what happens with ADHD? It's spiked by sugar, yeah? And as soon as our children get to secondary school, they're no longer being taken to school. They're no longer under the jurisdiction of their parents when they leave the house to go to school. Some of them even before they go to school. So guess what they're consuming? Sugar. I can tell you this for a fact. When I worked in a PRU, those kids with ADHD would get their sugar fix every morning. One of the kids is going to the shop, raiding the shop for all the toxic stuff, the sweets, the fizzy drinks, and coming into school and sharing it out amongst all the other ADHD kids. And guess what I'm having to deal with? Hyper kids. Why? Because Johnny or Susie got let loose from home and was told, go to school, here's some money, buy yourself lunch. What did they buy? They didn't go in no health food shop and buy water and health food. They went and got fizzy drink and sweets. Yeah. And to the point that fizzy drink and sweets sometimes became all they ate in a day. Because guess what I didn't do? I didn't leave some money for me to pay for a lunch. So that's why ADHD is a big problem, because very often the parents aren't dealing with the issue of diet with those children. Some teachers use it as a discriminatory tool. I mean, we've talked about discrimination in school. It's going to happen because the school system is institutionally racist. So whatever they can use, they're going to use it. Parents must also help their child to set boundaries and adjust accordingly. Yeah, absolutely. Parents must also be consistent with child and school. That's a problem. I deal with a lot of children who their parents don't even give a damn. They're like, let the school deal with it. I got work to do. If Johnny's getting out of order or Susie's getting out of order, that's your problem. Deal with it. I deal with them when they get home. You know, some of the children, they don't even want to go home, because if anything goes wrong at home, they're getting a kotas and they don't want to deal with that. So they'd rather be at school. 55 of the children last year went Oxbridge. Yeah, that's Brampton Academy, Brampton Manor Academy. The other thing I wanted to mention about EHCPs. Wow. I mean, Cheryl, I can only say the job you do is phenomenal, because I see EHCP plans daily and they're woeful. You know, they're the health of the education departments and the schools are as culpable as each other in diagnosing EHCPs so badly and not monitoring them and not doing what they actually say they're supposed to do. Yeah. And I'll tell you what happens with EHCPs. Yeah. This is what happens. A child gets money. Yeah. They get allocated funds. Yeah. They might get 10,000. They might get 20,000 for a year to supply extra assistance to a child. And the school will fritter that money away. And they will go and get you an agency TA who has no skills, who has no interest, and say, sit with that child, will you? 5 days a week, not doing anything, not getting anywhere. Because all they're there is to babysit. They're not really invested in a child. They're not really qualified to do anything with the child in terms of development. You know, look, in my job, I'm doing, you know, speech and language therapy. I'm working with kids in group therapy, dance therapy, sport, you know, all these things that I can get myself ingratiate with these kids in, I will. But I'm a unicorn because most TAs don't do these things. They're just about getting a check. They're just about coming in, get the kids through the session and get the hell out. You know, will they provide a resource out of school? Hell no. You know, as a mentor, I mentor kids. I have parents ring me up at night saying, my kid's just been arrested. So yeah, okay, guess what? I'm gonna come down and I'll meet you at the station. That's the kind of investment I'm dealing with as a mentor. That's what's missing with the teachers and the mentors that, you know, or some of the people that are dealing with our kids because they don't have that investment. Yeah, EHCPs are absolute, they're a minefield, and you could have a session on them, really, because there are so many errors that I see daily in them. And this, the whole thing of commonly seeing an EHCP plan that's 5 years old, that hasn't been reviewed, and having a kid that looks nothing like the EHCP is daily occurrence. I'll leave it at that for now.
The fact that, do you know the interesting thing? Can you hear me?
Yes.
The interesting thing about that is that an educational healthcare plan needs to be assessed every year. And sometimes with an emergency assessment. But funny enough, I was on my Instagram earlier and I did say we're going to do a session just based around special educational needs and how parents can actually access what they need and how they can find out where the money's been spent. What does that look like? Who's qualified? Who's not qualified? Because it's a, like you said, it's a huge problem, and they don't care. Because when did they ever care? So why do we expect them to care now? It's for us to care enough to be forewarned and forearmed and be able to go in and challenge them, and you will win. And that's the thing, to be successful in your challenge. Don't wait until your child gets kicked out of school, because and whether your child is gifted and talented, A-class student, the pools are filled with them. Pupil referral units are filled with those children. So it's just down to which teacher you get, and if you're hoping that your teacher doesn't take set on your child is not the one that ends up eating glass. Your child at 12 is not the one pulling their hair out. Your child at 14 is not the one wetting their bed. That's kind of the pressure that our children are under within the UK education system, and that's just a fact. Okay, let's go on to some Q&As, because I know people have been putting comments. Does anyone in the chat or who's listening have any questions to any of our panel with regards to how they can support their child within the school environment, some do's and don'ts, language to use, complaints procedures, going to schools to kick down teachers is a no. All of these things. Any questions? Let me turn off my camera because my camera is long.
There's a question about funding and resources for homeschooling. Kay, are you able to assist with that one, perhaps?
funding for homeschool, formerly before the pandemic, if a child had an EHCP, even if the child is being homeschooled, he was still entitled to that funding. That legislation has changed over the last year, so that if a child has an EHCP and the parent decides to deregister the child to home educate them, then they're effectively blackmailing parents by refusing to pay any of the funding for the EHCP unless you use their approved tutors. But then their approved tutors don't do face-to-face. They will do a lot of online teaching, and it is not the same thing. So you've got a lot of parents who just walk away from it because they see it as a kind of blackmail. I've seen some parents who put their children back in the same school because the local authority, send the funding for the EHCP to the school that the child's already been deregistered from. And then the school's refusing to send it back. So the only way that the child can access any help is to go back into school and back into the same situation from where they walked away. I mean, for tutors like myself, it all depends because, for a lot of parents who are home educating are either not working or on reduced earnings. So it all depends on how well you place yourself with the finances. If you come in at what you think you ought to be paid, no parent who's home educating can afford £60 a day or whatever. But again, if you make it something that's affordable, then parents are prepared to make that investment. And for me, it works because I only do 3 days a week because, as I said, I'm retired and I'd like to feel it that I have 2 days where I can do other things rather than teach. And I pack a lot into the 3 days. And so for the children, and the parents, they don't mind because they know that when they come to me by the Wednesday afternoon, they've covered so much that what their parents can do other things with them that are not academic and not have to feel guilty about it or thinking, well, I need to be doing some maths and English and science and French or whatever on Thursday and Friday. So I only do Monday to Wednesday. But again, the funding can be a huge problem if parents are on some kind of universal credit or on any kind of benefits. Then, it certainly is a deterrent for some parents who want to take their children out simply because the EHCP funding is now being withheld from home educating parents. That's what I found anyway. I mean, if it's available elsewhere, or if Cheryl, if this is something that you can fight, I know quite a lot of parents would love to hear from you as to how they navigate around the local authorities to get them to pay for their children's education or home education, or pay for the tutors that they would like to do and some of the activities that they would like, instead of being forced to be put back in the institutions that they walked away from. So over to you, Cheryl. I mean,
okay, so there's what you're saying is correct with regards to what's going on. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, I can. Yeah.
And the funding, because it's been coming for a while. However, they can still pay. Like I've said, and I keep saying, I have children doing horse riding, hot yoga, massage therapy, etc. One of the ways to navigate that is to put your child on a part-time timetable with the school. Mm-hmm. So they go to school 1 day a week for socializing and for their mental health and well-being. And then the rest of the time they do your tutoring. So then that way, for the tutoring, whether it's approved by the local authority, because there's a lot of tutoring agencies, the tutoring is recognized by whether it be an exam board, whether it be even the whole local authority. There are a lot of tutor centers that are private, but there are some that are recognized, and they're recognized by exam boards. So the local authority cannot say no. It's a bit like social services where they say that I can come to your house and basically turn up when I feel like it. Well, no, you can't. It's an invitation. I don't have to accept it. So that's the thing of the language that they're using to basically get what they want. And with Camille, they called an EP in to assess her, and the EP said XYZ, but the teacher keep complaining still. The educational psychologist will do a report. The report can take up to 2 weeks before you get it. The report will come to you, the school, and the local authority. The report will be part of the educational healthcare plan. From that, you will have a meeting with the school, the local authority, and yourself about what's in that report, what you agree with, what you want amended, etc. That will then be amended in the educational healthcare plan and sent back to the local authority. We'll go back to the local, because all of this, just so you know, takes at least 12 to 20 weeks. That goes back to the local authority, where the local authority will type it up again, send it to all parties involved. If you agree with everything that's in the educational healthcare plan and the recommendations by the educational psychologist, then that's what the school is supposed to follow. One of the things that I have noted is that a lot of educational healthcare plans are not being followed by schools. Yes. This is where you take up the complaints procedure, because an educational healthcare plan is a legally binding document. It is legal. It's not that just some piece of paper that's been written on. It is a legal document. And if that legal document is not being followed, then you have all the right to go through the complaints procedures, tier 1 and tier 2. You go to the governors first, then you go arm above their head, and then you go to disability discrimination in the High Court. And that's the way how that process works. You don't just, it's not a case of, well, you know, as they always do, they will get one TA to work with 10 kids across 5 classrooms and tell you that your child's getting one-to-one support. No, it doesn't go like that. There needs to be a clear breakdown of what that care looks like. There needs to be a clear breakdown of that person's qualifications. If your child's getting mentoring, who is the mentor? Is he qualified to deal with a child that has ADHD, ODD, SEMH, autism? What is, you know, where did he work before? You are entitled to ask all of those questions. And they have to give you a breakdown by law. And even if they try not to, you ask for their file, everything should be in there. Everything should be in there, and there's supposed to be reports written every time. And every year, if you've got 10 things on an educational healthcare plan, each year, you're supposed to be able to knock something off because your child has achieved a goal. And that's the whole point of it. So by the age of 25, they will no longer need it and be able to go into the world and be able to navigate life. And we who don't have EHCP struggle to navigate life. So boy, sometimes I wonder, but the educational healthcare plan process is tedious, it's long, but if you feel your child needs it, go. Psychologists could be in the school, so you have to go to local authority. Sometimes you just go to the local authority, contact them, and say you want a form for an educational healthcare plan. The fact, oh, hello, I didn't even know I was on a flyer. EP in place is not a bad thing. Obviously, they have concerns and they want to eliminate whatever's going on with your child. So, you know, sometimes it is to go through the assessment so you know what you're working with. As has been said by Tony, by Marlene, and also by Kay, a lot of the time, if your child has ADHD, ODD, it can be managed. 99% of the time, it is managed through diet, the right type of exercise, and the right type of stimulation. The E numbers in foods. You know, how is it that most people nowadays can't eat bread, can't eat eggs because it swells up their stomach and makes them ill because of what they're putting in the food? I remember buying a pizza from Iceland once, just a basic cheese and tomato pizza. The amount of additives and stuff, it should have just been dough and cheese. No. It was so much. And one of my friends who deals with neurology has basically, he put out a paper a few years ago about the diets children are eating. Then they're sitting in front of the television, and then the stimulation in their brain is so high that it's like as if they're on crack, and then you expect them to sit still in a classroom for an hour to be miseducated. Come on now, with people that don't like them. We need to be really serious about this. Is there any other questions aside from the education and healthcare question? That is a more one-to-one that can't really be done on this forum. But if there's any other questions about how you can navigate the system as a parent, how you can support your child in navigating the school system. I used to do something with my sons who are older now, and it would be, if the teacher is being disrespectful and rude, because some of them are, wait until the end of the lesson, don't embarrass her, go up to her desk and speak to her in a calm manner and discuss whatever your concerns are. interestingly, one of my sons are quite fair skinned. We call him Bart Simpson. And the other two are quite dark skinned. And the difference in how they were all treated was quite evident. The light skinned one has light skin privilege. And he is the one now, as a 30-year-old, who will go up front first for anything. If you need to get into a club when they're all going out, the light skinned one will go, because he recognizes his light skin privilege in comparison to the other two who are darker. And it's just a fact. So you need to be able to, you have to train your children on how they communicate with the teacher, how they communicate and how they communicate with their peers. If there's an underlying need, what that looks like. You've got 3 of the best teachers out there online now to ask them, you know? So now is your time. Speak up or forever hold your.
Hello, please. My name is Stephen. Could I ask, how would I be able to get a copy of the recording of this session once it ends?
Sorry, it will be on YouTube. It's actually streaming live on YouTube now, so it will always be there unless they block me again.
Okay, thank you.
Story of my life.
I understand.
Yeah. So it's on YouTube now. It's been streamed live, and you'll be able to watch it any day. And share, please share and follow, subscribe, which everyone says. So really, there's no questions. Everyone. So all the information that's been given this evening. There's Olu. All the information that's been given this evening. All of you taking it down. I hope you all had a notepad and pen, took down notes, had the children in the room with you, listening. You know, gravitate towards some of the Black teachers. Guys, Marlene, Tony, and Kay, maybe not Kay so much now, but how do you guys find being able to step up a tier within your profession, being able to go from the mentor, which is very important, don't get it twisted, to the vice principal, to the head of X or the head of Y? Do you see that happening with a lot of the Black teachers within your profession? Because as you have both and all have said, they give you guys the children that they think are hard to handle because they can't be bothered to deal with them. And you turn those children around and then they take that from you and then throw you wherever they feel like it. Now, when a promotion comes up, what does that look like for you guys? Hey.
Okay. Why? I mean, I have gone up the ladder right up to the top. In schools, I was lucky in that I was given opportunities by white head teachers and predominantly women. I was given opportunities to shine in school because they saw my potential, and you know, so I didn't have a problem with that. Rising to the top. Actually, I was encouraged and pushed and mentored, you know, on my way there. You know, but I was given a lot of the difficult children because I had my own way of pacifying them and getting them to achieve. And so I would be given quite a lot of the difficult children. I remember going into one school and I was given a year 11 class that was children who was literally siphoned off of other people's classes and put into one. So, you know, the first meeting with these children, it was almost like a nightmare meeting. I didn't even have a proper classroom. I was just put in a computer room. Now, if you've got children who are, you know, classed as semi-illiterate, and you put them in front of in a computer room where the letter is not, that's all they want to do is play. And my goodness, I had a fight on my hands in order to get those children to conform to what I wanted. Because they, you know, I remember the first lesson I took, one girl said, "Miss, we're the divs that nobody wants." And that made me extremely sad. But it was her way of accepting that whatever, you know, she spent 4 years in the school, nobody wanted her. And in comes this new teacher, and we're all in here. And of course, the naughty ones know each other. You know, because you know, so you suddenly have from everybody, you know, said, "Oh, which class? You were in this class, and you were in this body's class." And you think now they're all in one class together. They're going to have a great time doing no work or whatever. And for me, I had to pull on every skill that I had in order to get those children into where I wanted them. But I mean, I showed it could be done.
Oh, fantastic.
It was tough. It was tough. The first few weeks, I just thought, you know, should I just walk out of here? This is just crazy. I don't even have a classroom. But, you know, I realized that, you know, that I was being watched to see how I was going to manage this. So I had
Most
to make it
definitely.
happen. Yes, had to
Yeah.
make it happen.
But then, they never teach white. They never have white teachers doing that. That's
No.
the interesting thing I've noticed. You don't see them doing that with the white teachers, putting them. Who does that? Because the white teachers will come with their crocodile tears.
Mhm.
I feel like they're being victimized,
Mhm.
and you know, be given a pat on the head when it should be a shotgun, but even still, and given the best of the best care. And the same thing with our children. The white teachers are given the best opportunity and the best care, and then they wonder why our children behave in a particular way. Go on, Marlene. I know you wanted to just say something.
Well, what I wanted to say, basically, I was just putting it in the chat. Does the white teachers have the natural affection and compassion that we as Black people have? So that's why they don't get given the bottom end of the pile as we would, because we have that way of nurturing. We are natural, we nurture naturally. That's part of our makeup, isn't it? So that is why they don't do that. They'll give them the best, and the best will strive. Whereas when they give us the difficult students and they strive, when they see that they're striving, they then take them away from us, and then they get the praise. But it doesn't matter whether or not they get the praise. The fact is that that young person is actually recognizing their potential, and they will become who they know they can be. And that was as a result of the Black teacher who interacted and engaged with them. And that's the important thing for me.
Tony, what do you want to, do you want to jump on that?
Well, I mean, you know, I think it's just, I don't see any school making it easy for Black educators to progress in education. I just don't see it. And I know we do make it to the promised land. You know, I commend any Black teacher who has made it to the top, because you would have had to have gone through so much to have got there. You know, I'm almost of the mindset that we just need to create our own and do for self. And I know, Kay, you've tried to do that on several occasions, and I know the problems that you've had with plagiarism of your strategies and work and ideologies about running schools. But I just see it as a minefield. I see, you know, look how many Black teachers are leaving education.
Yeah.
That's all you got to look at is go, why are they leaving?
Yeah.
Because they get in, they want to do the right thing, they want to help our children, but when they get there, the love is not there.
Yeah, I agree. There is Monique.
Hello, good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
I was on a YouTube, I was
evening.
streaming from YouTube. So I just ran over to just quickly ask a question if I could. If anyone on the panel is providing tutoring or mentoring, I don't know if you've mentioned this already. And if so, how do we go about contacting yourselves to get this service if that's provided, please?
You need to speak to the brother Olu, because he is a tutor. My brother Olu is
We'll
right
put it
there.
in
Talk up the talk, Olu.
Hi, guys.
Keep an eye on the chat, because I know Tony's fingers are typing already. And right after, there you go. Go on.
Hi, can you hear
Thank
me?
you very much.
Yes.
Hello, my name is Olu. I've been in education nearly 20 years in various roles from middle to senior leadership. So I've done the whole head of department, assistant head, vice principal, I've done the whole thing. And I came out a few years ago to set my own business in terms of tutoring, mentoring, coaching. And I didn't really, because I was quite frustrated, because as you move up the levels, the challenges you have are not the children, it's the staff. And let me give you an example. When I first came into teaching, it was great because you have a natural affinity in building positive relationships with children. And in school, learning is all about cultivating positive relationships. If the environment is not right, a child cannot learn. It's very important. So it's about creating that safe environment in where the child can feel safe. It's a nurturing environment, and learning is conducive in that environment. And I found that when you first get into it and you find that you have that relationship with children, behavior management comes as a natural cause. The children are more inclined to listen to you. They get you. But there's a trap here we have to be careful, especially as our young Black men, because as you become more proficient in this, schools are trying to shoehorn you into positions where they're looking at your behavior management skills and not your teaching proficiency. So you find young Black people getting positions like head of behavior, head of year pastorals, where we should be focusing on teaching excellence. If you really want to raise the game of teaching standards in our community, you have to focus on excellence. What does it look like? It's not about tenure. I've been teaching for 20 years. What have you done while you've been teaching? Have you learnt your practice? Have you worked in good schools? Do you have that deep subject knowledge you can impart onto students? Have you engaged in training other practitioners how to sharpen their practice? That's how you develop your excellence. And I found it was okay, but as you move up, the problems became other staff, and especially other staff of a similar colour. Yeah? Let me give you an example. I said I run my own teaching company now, yeah? Tutoring company. I went for an interview at a PRU in London. I'm not going to name the PRU. And I met with the head teacher, and I said, first of all, because I'm at the stage now where I can decide the kind of environment I want to work in. Because all too often, when you go to an interview, it's very manufactured. You see it on the day. I want to go to a school on a normal day. I want to see what the kids are like. So I've arranged an interview with a head teacher. I said, let me just walk around to see your school. And after having a brief conversation with the head teacher said, you know what? Submit an application and we'll take it from there. I submitted an application. I was shortlisted. I attended the interview. And during the interview, it came up, the person interviewing said to me, I'm quite interested how you had this certain qualification so early in your teaching career. And I said, well, the way my career was going at the time, my current head teacher saw enough in me to put me on this program, and I was successful in achieving that qualification. It was the NPQH qualification. Yeah. Now, can you believe that the person interviewing me said, I don't understand how you got that as a middle leader. It's funny to say that I didn't get the job, and the person interviewing me, who was a person of colour, said to me, that is an issue for me. So let me repeat now. The person interviewing me was a person of colour, said, that is an issue. I don't understand how you got that so early in your career. So it just said to me, I had to reflect and think, if a white person had done that to me, I'd be called racism.
The hateration.
Yeah, I'd be calling racism. So my page 1 in my life is your page 20, and that is blocking you from taking me. Yeah, so it just goes to show you, sometimes the battles we fight are not against personal difficulty, but sometimes within our own. Yeah. So, Emily, coming back to this, when you aspire to be in leadership, that's when you affect the most change. You can only do so much as a classroom teacher, and then your sphere broadens. Then you become a head of year, head of department, head of a key stage. I feel if you want to affect real change, we have to be honest with each other. Do we represent Black excellence in our teaching practice? And all too often we don't. We don't. You know, I always say to myself, the worst schools I worked in, there's too many Black people there. If I'm perfectly honest with you, because we tend to congregate in the staff room. We do all the things which don't put us in a positive light. I know these are very difficult conversations to have. Let's be honest. So when I hear Tony say, I don't know many Black senior leaders, I know quite a few. And if you're asked about their journey, they did the hard work. You have to make sure that you've done all the necessary training for the position that you're seeking. So, do you have your teaching qualification? Do you have your postgraduate or your master's qualification? Have you done additional training relevant to the post you're chasing? Have you worked in the right schools, or have you played it safe and worked in the safe schools with people of color? I worked in schools where I'm a minority. We have to challenge ourselves, not just working, let's work in like in London. Go outside London. Because let me tell you something now. Having worked in schools across the country, the problems are the same, the faces are different. But we have to be honest. All too often, we tend to congregate in schools which we're very comfortable.
Yes.
Go to that school in the suburbs and go for that position. Test yourself, challenge yourself, and then come back and bring the skills that you've learned. So what I want to say here, I mean, somebody mentioned it here today, why are we focusing on the lower end? We're probably focusing on the lower end because those are the places where we feel most disadvantages, where we feel the most harm being done. But I put it to you now, yeah, we need to look at ourselves. I mean, somebody also mentioned the fact that in African communities, it's frowned upon to be told that your child has some sort of SCN. And how do we deal with our culture? We beat it out of them or we pray it out of them. How about working with the school to see, we can work in a collegiate manner to see, how can we work with your child? I've been in schools whereby the parent is not interested in coming down for parents' evening, but you take that child's phone, see how fast the parent comes down to school. Let's be honest. So that's what I want to say there. But in terms of tutoring, again, I'll leave my a note in the section here. I offer tutoring, coaching, and mentoring, Key Stage 3, Key Stage 4. Yeah. And my name is Olu, and I'm thankful for being on this platform.
You're most welcome. Thank you very much for your contribution, Olu. It's so true. But I will be honest, doing the Black Child Agenda for what, 12 years now, 11 years, something like that, I can't count. People are like, oh, do you have to deal with parents that are all from like what, single parent households, housing estates, drug problems? And to be honest with you, the majority of the single parents are really, really on it with their children. I think in all the 12 years, I've had about 3 parents that I personally had to cuss out myself because they were just whatless or didn't understand and wouldn't do what they were told. And aside from that, the rest of the parents have been very well supported or almost going to split up. Again, first generation Jamaican parents that I had, and first generation Ghanaian parents, where they were battering the child, cussing out the child, taking things away, only to realize later on that the child can't be so bad. Mm-hmm. And then when they actually looked at what was going on, it wasn't really all about the child, it was how they were treated in the school, and then managed to navigate the system. But it is fascinating hearing from a parental perspective, what different types of parents you come because mine has been a very interesting mix, but some of the people are teachers themselves. Some of the clients are social workers, some of them are doctors, lawyers. It's across the board.
You're breaking up again, Cheryl.
Right across, there's no, so I find it fascinating. Has anyone exactly 8 minutes? I was just saying, any other points or questions?
Can I just also give some advice to parents who are engaging with schools and having difficulty either trying to get the point across or get the point across in a way they will be heard? And what I've said is, when you approach a school with evidence. All too often we approach a school on an emotional basis. So for example, if you feel your child is being picked on by a particular teacher, so to speak, approach the school with evidence. What does it look like? It may be a case of, well, my teachers had X amount of detentions over a period of 2 weeks. Can you explain to me why my son and my daughter has had this frequency of sanctions? You see how you've gone there with evidence. But if you approach them with, you're always picking on my child, you're always giving them detentions, you can't quantify that. Yeah? Because once we know how to articulate our concerns to schools, they're more likely to take us more seriously. But all too often we go down there in this bully boy tactics, aggression. They've already got an issue with your child. Now they look at you and think, oh, I can see why your child's like that. It doesn't work to your child's benefit. Remember, we're all there for the purpose of the child. And if we put the child central, we can often come to a solution that is best for that child. I've been in situations where I've had, I've made an assumption and I've got it wrong. So, Mum, Dad, I'm sorry, I got that wrong. But all too often teachers, because of the way you approach them, even when they're wrong, they won't even admit it. So I just think sometimes we need to think about how we engage with a school, how we approach a school when we want to get our point across. Go there with evidence-based and go with a mindset that you want to work with the school for the best interest of your child. I just want to say that. Yeah.
Well, thank you for that, Olu. It looks like we are going to finish 5 minutes early. Yay! Because usually we go on quite until sometimes even 9 o'clock. Thank you for everybody that has taken part and all the contributions. And next week, I'm having a break. And we're going to plan the SEN conference for parents, so parents know how to actually navigate the SEN departments, local authorities, etc. So until then, can you still hear me?
Yeah,
Yes.
we can.
Cool. Until such time, I thank you all for taking part and being able to impart your wisdom and experience, because a lot of people have a lot of things to say, but you guys are living this. And you're doing an amazing job with our young people. And it's like I'm glad that they have people like you within the education system looking out for them, because if we're not looking out for our children, I don't know who is. Because it is tough out there. Doing what I do, I see the end, sometimes not even the end result. My co-director is a criminal defense barrister, and she sees that, she's just opened up a funeral parlor as well. So she sees it from both sides. It's a lot. We need to do that. Yeah, hi, Stephen.
Sorry, just to say, the difficulty you're having with the connection, before you go on air, if you set your settings to, what's it called? LTE WCDMA / GSM, then you will find that you will have a better line of stream and less interference. Thank you.
Can you text that across? Can you put that in the chat? Because there's no way I'm going to remember that. It sounds useful, but I'm using just my mobile phone network, which is poor.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. It makes it easier, but I'll put it in, yeah.
Yeah, please do. Thank you very much. And that'll be useful for the next one. So yeah, until such time, thank you guys, and keep doing what you're doing.
You too.
Because you are like that ray of hope for our children in that environment.
Thank you, Cheryl.
Any parting words, everybody? Anyone? Tony? More? Oh, you're welcome.
No, thank you, everybody. Thank you very much, Cheryl, for again hosting this wonderful platform.
Yes. Keep up the good work.
Yes.
Keep it up. It's well needed.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Thank you. I'm glad, but I will definitely be in touch with you all again soon.
Yes, looking forward to that.
And I will definitely be sharing this with my family. Thank you very much. It's been an insight.
Thank you, Stephen.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank
Until
you.
the next time.
Yeah.
Bye,
take
everyone.
Blessings.
Bye.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Okay, that was interesting. Very interesting. I liked that.